Good afternoon, everyone. Before we begin, I would like to introduce everybody behind me, and obviously, I think it goes without introduction, who's to my left here. Obviously, we have Matt Weintraub here to my left, but I want to make it a point to introduce the team that was involved in this investigation and the leadership involved in this investigation. We have our Chief of County Detectives, Marty McDonough. Next to Marty McDonough, we have Special Agent in Charge for Homeland Security Investigations, Bill Walker. Behind me, we have County Detective Dante Montella and County Detective Eric Landamia. We have Pennsylvania Office of Attorney General, Dave Budka. We have my colleague, Kristen McElroy, who is the prosecutor assigned to the case. And we have Special Agent Lisa Reinhold to her right. And we have Group Supervisor Steph Snyder, both from Homeland Security Investigations. Brian Nathaniel Harris, who's 28 years old, from Bristol Borough, from Pond Street, was arrested earlier today for charges that involve child molestation. It also involves charges pertaining to the manufacturing of child pornography and dissemination of child pornography. Presently, we have identified 3 minor victims who were victimized by this individual, but we have reason to fear that there may be more. The allegations are that this predator victimized these children both by exploiting them, by manufacturing child sexual abuse materials, and by sexually victimizing them. Perhaps one of the most shocking facts is that our youngest victim is 2 years old, and that child was the victim of the sexual abuse material. Equally as shocking is that with the other victims, who were as young as 8 at the time of their victimization and repeated victimization, that this individual memorialized these sexual acts that he perpetrated upon these children. Obviously, it doesn't get more disturbing than that. Before I appeal to the public for help, which is why we're here, I have to state just what a phenomenal job this team has done. And truly, it is remarkable. And we would not be here today but for their actions. Just to break this down a little bit, this came in as a single image cyber tip, meaning that the entity that monitors these images, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, received a tip from an electronic service provider, who then provided it to the Pennsylvania ICAC, Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, who then identified this perpetrator as a Bucks County resident, who then forwarded the information to our detectives, Detective Landamia and Detective Montella. With that, they collaborated with Homeland Security Investigations and the Pennsylvania Office of Attorney General, and with the assistance of the U.S. Marshals, they executed a search warrant on this individual's residence, and where they seized countless digital media storage devices, including multiple phones, a laptop, and other storage devices. And it was the immediate work that was done by these detectives to extract the data and review the data that identified our worst fears, that the allegations involve actual sexual crimes being perpetrated physically on these children. With that, these individuals worked tirelessly to identify who those children are and worked in collaboration with the Bucks County Child Advocacy Center. And I would be remiss in failing to mention the wonderful work they do in providing a safe place for children to disclose abuse. At this point, we have identified 3 victims, both male and female, prepubescent, meaning small children, victims of these sexual crimes. But we have reason, very credible reason, to fear that there may be more. So we're asking for the public's help and the media. As you know, you're such a great tool to get the word out, to encourage anyone who believes their children may have had access, or this individual may have had access to their children, or they know of children he may have had access to please report that information to the number we've provided. I want to thank you all for your help in this, and I'm going to turn it over to Special Agent in Charge, Bill Walker.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity, sir and ma'am, to provide a few brief remarks today. My name is Bill Walker. I'm the Special Agent in Charge for Homeland Security Investigations, or HSI, for the states of Pennsylvania and Delaware. HSI is the primary investigative arm for the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. And one of our primary missions remains the investigation of those that exploit our children. There really should be no greater law enforcement priority than protecting our kids from those that seek to exploit them for their own personal greed or self-gratification. And so I think today's conversation underscores a few really important points. One, teamwork in child exploitation cases is paramount. Our partnership with the Bucks County DA's office transcends a number of different types of cases we work. But in a case like this, partnerships allowed us to envelop victim witness specialists and forensic interviewers at the outset to make sure that we were able to build the most comprehensive investigation and prosecution possible. That means that it's the most advantageous way to making sure that predators are held to justice and victims receive the help and the services that they need. Second, and I think the most important point, is that today's announcement is yet another example of remembering that child predators will stop at nothing. What you've heard today reveals, again, the horrific nature of grooming and access to children. And I think every parent and every guardian in the region who has a child needs to be versed in how predators exploit children. We need to trust our intuition. If something seems off with our children, or something seems off with those that seek to access our children, don't ignore the feeling. HSI and our partners at the Bucks County DA's office and throughout the Commonwealth are committed to providing training and outreach through our iGuardian presentation so that teachers, coaches, parents, anyone with access to children, anybody that cares for children, is aware of the red flag indicators of abuse before they occur. And third, and it was just brought up, every single child exploitation involves the element of time being of the absolute essence. Agents, detectives, officers, and prosecutors spent their Thanksgiving week and last weekend working tirelessly as a team, bringing all of their authorities to bear to make sure that they were able to identify and continue to identify child victims in this case and get them the help they need to get their lives back on track. No one law enforcement agency can do it alone. Last year, HSI rescued more victims of exploitation than we ever have in our agency's history, and so clearly more has to be done. But today's announcement is a really good, I think a great and very notable first step in that direction. Thank you.
So we'll take questions. Yes.
One, how did he have access to the children? And two, in the communications back and forth where you believe he was sharing this, the communications here, do you believe that he was sharing these same images? And if so, are those people identified, and are you able to charge those people who were sharing these images?
I'll go in reverse order. Great questions. We do have evidence that indicates that he was in communication with other like-minded predators online. Obviously, this investigation, we're just at the tip of the iceberg. So we're still investigating, and we'll have, it'll take some time, and we don't know if we'll be able to identify those individuals, but we do know of at least 2 online predators that he was communicating his sexual attraction with about children and some images and videos. And as to the first question, as far as access to the children that have been identified, that he has fostered relationships with their parents, and therefore by those relationships access those children. And in one particular case, a family who was dealing with a tragedy.
So I think that's part of, when you were hearing about parents knowing the signs, I think probably some parents negatively feel like the adult first. So what kind of advice can you offer to parents to try and get to know this person before they trust them with their children?
It's so hard. It happens to families, regardless of how vigilant they may be. It can happen. Predators are very good at what they do. I think the key is just to communicate and identify any changes in your children and try to have that dialogue consistently with your children, because predators, like I said, they're indiscriminate with their victims and their victims' family.
Jen, the forensic examination of his electronic devices, does that lead you to believe that why you believe there are other victims?
Yes, I can say with certainty that our identified victims, we had files named in their name. We have other files named in other children's names that we have yet to identify those children.
Do you believe those other victims are local? Did he travel outside of Bucks County?
That's a great question, and I failed to mention, we have concerns about ties to other states that are within driving distance to Pennsylvania, in particular Long Beach Island and the Jersey Shore, and some surrounding states that he has access to, or excuse me, that we believe he was researching the possibility of accessing children in other states.
Does he have any other criminal record?
I can't speak to that at this juncture.
So in his communications, he referred to one of the victims as a nephew. So you're saying this is a foster relationship? This isn't a biological nephew, one of the victims? Can you clarify that?
I can speak to the fact that, as far as we know thus far, not a blood relative.
Okay. And his occupation, what was he doing for work?
He worked for a company in Levittown that does supplies home improvement products. And so we do have concern for anyone he may have foster relationships with adults through work and access their children. We have concerns. So we're just seeking information at this point.
So just to be clear, you're saying foster a relationship. You're not talking about being a foster.
No, excuse me. No, meaning, in terms of grooming. Develop relationships with people.
Any idea the span, how many victims you're looking for here?
It's hard to say. We do know at this, for the past 5 years, it's safe to say that, excuse me for 1 second. We know that the allegations thus far cover a span of 5 years. We do know that there are at least roughly 8 or 9 files that identify children. But again, we are just at the early stages of the investigation as it relates to the digital media that is being analyzed as we speak.
Jen, is the 8 or 9 files you just mentioned that identify children, does that include the 3 known victims?
It does.
Do you have any advice for parents on talking to your children about this? Obviously, if they think that their parents have had, or their children have had contact with this guy, this is going to be a difficult conversation to try and disseminate, what happened. How should parents or guardians approach this topic? That's why we value our Child Advocacy Center. If anyone has reason to believe their children were in this individual's care, they should notify us and then let the professionals take the next steps. We do precautionary interviews that are non-leading and non-suggestive, so it's really important that the parents have the dialogue just to kind of, first and foremost, assess whether or not he was allowed in their children's lives. And at that point, I would suggest they notify the experts so they can do what they do to determine whether or not these children were victims or perhaps maybe were being groomed to be victims. But that's the very important key, is not to question them specifically. So it's a great question. Multiple locations. We do have concern about a location in Falls Township that, is a recreational camping location, as well as other locations. So. Do you think any of the acts took place at his home?
One moment, please. We're determining that still.
The camping locations here sound like one of those cabins or trailers there, or was it just that he went there with family? So it's kind of like a private, you have to have a place there to be there.
I can't speak to that at this juncture, obviously, given the fact that the investigation is still pending, but in fact, obviously you're referring to the specific location I'm referring to. So yes, we have reason to be concerned about access to children there.
Anyone else living in that Bristol home? Just him? Any relatives?
He was living there with relatives.
So from here, who takes this? Does HSI take this, the Attorney General's office?
At this point, the Bucks County District Attorney's Office is prosecuting the crimes that occurred in Bucks County. Obviously, it's really important if there are any tips that we receive that are jurisdictions outside of Bucks County, we will make sure to work together in collaboration to get them to where they need to be.
Have any of the relatives he lived with been implicated in any way?
Not at this juncture, no.
He remains county jail tonight for
$20 million on the second set of charges. He was charged initially with the possession of the child sexual abuse material, which I believe was $100,000, 10%, but right now it's $20 million cash bail. So he resides in the Bucks County Correctional Facility as we speak.
facing more than 150 counts.
Yes. Thank you.